Thank you, Brittany. It's always a pleasure to be in conversation with you.
So, Dr. Collins, I know a lot of folks are thinking to themselves tonight, saying, finally. What's your reaction to the Senate passing the bill, and what a historic moment this is for Biden and his administration right now?
You said it. Honestly, everyone should be relieved right now. Help is on the way. Help is on the way. So we have, $1,400 stimulus relief checks that should be out in the mail and in our mailboxes by the end of the month. We have aid going directly towards folks who are particularly impoverished positions. We have aid going to schools. We have aid going towards vaccine dissemination. I mean, this is huge. This is what the Biden administration promised on the campaign trail. And they told us that they were going to prioritize COVID relief and economic stimulus. And, they got the deal done.
And so, Dr. Collins, there had been a lot of back and forth. House Speaker Pelosi says the bill honors our heroes and our healthcare workers and teachers, but the minimum wage increase, like you just said, didn't make the cut. What are some of the most important pieces that remain in the bill that were not stripped by the Senate?
Well, I want to start by saying that the fact that the federal minimum wage increase was taken out, that's a huge hit, because the thing that is going to be the tail test of whether this economic stimulus was successful is if we actually see economic growth over time. So this is a $1.9 trillion bill. What does that mean? That means that we are essentially borrowing money against the future. And the only way that we can pay that money back is if we have the kind of economic growth that it takes in order to supply future funding towards the government that we're essentially borrowing against the future. So what we look into with the actual bill, the funding for, especially, again, folks who are in deep levels of poverty, folks who have, there's the earned income tax credit for parents, so that parents, especially who've been dealing with the COVID pandemic, can get some relief. There's funding for schools. And again, there's funding for COVID-19 vaccine dissemination, which should be a big jolt to the economy, getting people back into businesses, back to work, back to both consuming, and then also, again, back working as workers. So this is a potential plan for not just getting us through the COVID pandemic, but hopefully, really alleviating poverty and getting people back to work in the long term.
It's so important. And so the bill now heads back to the House, which is still hoping for bipartisan support. Do you think it'll be any pushback from Republicans that could potentially halt it?
I would be surprised. At this stage, the deal seems all but a formality to be done. The Democrats already have the numbers in the House. Obviously, what we saw in the Senate was a split 50-50 or 49-50 vote in favor of the Democrats. They have an even wider margin in the House. It would make no sense to put a large contestation effort into the bill when it returns to the House at this point. If anything, I think now the sides are going to start to get their messaging together. I think Democrats are going to start to really champion this and pat themselves on the back, as they should. And I think Republicans are going to start attacking it, and unfortunately hoping that it fails.
And Dr. Collins, Senator Thune said Republicans have learned a lot from Democrats about working under immense pressure that Dems have faced. Do you think Republicans are learning a lot from each other during the process?
Yes, I think, in this situation, the Republicans are learning who they can, quote unquote, trust. And what they ultimately do with that trust is going to be a huge question if and when they sort of assume political power again. But right now, I think they're learning sort of who the rank and file Republicans are, who are the ones who are going to stick with the party line, even when it goes against the popularity of public opinion. Look, 50% of Republicans, when polled, were in support of this COVID relief bill, yet no Republicans actually voted in support of the actual relief bill when it came through the Senate. And so what we're seeing is Republicans are sticking together, and they're learning who they can trust amongst themselves. And I guess that's going to be their pathway to political power. We'll see.
Do you think this will determine how people vote at the ballot box in years to come, just based off of President Biden being able to pass this bill?
Absolutely. In political science, we have this saying that people essentially vote with their pocketbooks. We call them pocketbook voters. So what happens is every 4 years, when folks are heading to the ballot box, one of the first things they do is they sort of look at themselves and they say, well, how am I doing financially? How am I doing economically, in terms of evaluating how the incumbent has performed during that presidency? And I think if folks feel like they're better off than they were 4 years ago because the President Biden was in office, this gives ammunition for the support of Biden if he runs for reelection, or a Democratic representative who tries to run on that ticket. Versus if people feel like they're not doing better, if people feel like they're worse off economically, well, then this becomes a huge source of appeal for a Republican challenger.
All right, Dr. Jonathan Collins, I love having you on the show. We appreciate your insight and your time.
Thank you. And we're matching.
We are matching today. We're in spirit.
We are. Great to see you, Brittany.
Great to see you too. Thank you.